what we do here is go back, 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 back.
Ooh, Santoya, speak, girl. So, Rodney, please go ahead.
I feel like sometimes, you know, when there is an interaction or altercation or something happens, it always feels like afterwards there's like the metaphor is like a speed bump. It's like, oh, something happened, let's put a speed bump up so the next time we don't have to deal with that. And that's cool because I appreciate like fixing the problem, but wouldn't it be so awesome to not need any speed bumps? What a concept. uh, this is not an example of exactly your question, but I have experienced at ACT, the play I was just doing, Tony Stone, where something positive happened. In the very, very beginning, we were all black cast, all black men and one black woman, the lead, Tony Stone. And we had a trauma consultant who was there for us because we had to go through some crazy shit, y'all, in this play. We had the coon for like, and I was the dance captain. We had a coon for like 4 or 5 minutes at the end of the first act. It was a serious thing. It's what they did. It's what the black people, black baseball players did in the 1930s and 40s. They were part of a show. You know, they were coons. They put on their own face. So, you know, that took a lot. Because what theater does, theater shows expression, those shows real experiences, and that was a black experience, which was shown on stage, which ACT chose to show, which was awesome. It was a great play. Too bad it stopped right at the pandemic. But the point was, I appreciated that we didn't have to ask for a consultant for our trauma because the majority of our creative team that was in the room with us were white people and women, which was awesome. But we didn't have that. I think they could see that we need a layer of a person who can connect and who they can go to if they need to. And I appreciate that being present prior to us having to ask. And I think that's like a small thing. It wasn't that small. It was great to have that black woman be there to be like, whoo, I don't know what's going on with this. And just to be able to let that out, you know, I think that was really, really helpful for all of my cast members.
Thank you. I think that's something that I'm hearing a lot from this conversation, that I'm interested, and especially for the people who are listening, is active solutions is a silly word. Do you know what I mean? But active solutions and actionable steps kind of moving forward from this moment. So I guess the next question that I want to ask is, you know, if you're willing to share more instances, what specific instances may stick with you where you witnessed or experienced anti-Blackness, and also how did it inform you better? Santoya.
So I did have one experience that I can't yet speak on, but there was another experience where I was a part of an all cast of color Shakespeare play at a theater company that had never had an all cast of color show in the 30 years that they had existed. And I was not prepared for what I experienced. It was very clear. The woman who's the owner of the company was also the director. And it was very clear from the first rehearsal that she's not used to talking to Black people who are not incarcerated. And I don't say that to put down anyone who's been incarcerated, but I'm saying she was not used to talking to Black people who had ideas about the way that who had agency over their bodies and who were able to challenge her in a very productive way. So from the first day of rehearsal, I mean, it just started off really crazy. And from there, just progressively, every single week, there was something that I had to report to Equity because it was awful. It was truly awful. But the thing that really stuck out with me was the fact that every night before we went on stage, this woman would speak to this all-white audience, and she would make it sound as though she found us all in some sharecropper's field and brought us in and taught us how to speak the English language. That's the way she spoke about us. She would say things like, oh, you know, I didn't think this cast would be able to do Shakespeare. And this was before we actually went on the stage to perform. From the beginning, we all spoke up. She had a huge misconception about African culture and Black American culture. She didn't understand that those two things were different. And so we had to educate her along the way about, no, you can't really use this as a real religion. You can't just insert this as a joke, or, you know, whatever it is that you want to do here. And after a while, the non-union actors stopped speaking up because, and I found this out afterwards, some people were afraid that they weren't going to get their pay at the end of the week, at the end of the run. Now, I was getting paid weekly. I was a union actor, but I don't think that would have mattered. I think I would have spoken up anyway. And so after a while, I was the only voice, and I became the target of this book, to the point that I was reporting every single incident to equity. This is where I found out that I don't necessarily have protection when it comes to my union, because what happened was the union would respond and say, well, it sounds like bad directing, or it sounds like it's racially insensitive. And I'm like, this is racism. Like, there's no other way to call it. So, but I continued to speak up. I would say it definitely took a toll on my mental health and on my emotional health at that time. But the worst part about all this experience actually had nothing to do with me. I found out at the end of the run that this woman did not pay 2 actors for any of their work at the end, and these actors didn't find out until the show was closed. And when I say I was angry when I found this out, because I recognized that they had been showing up to rehearsals, crossing that expensive bridge. I mean, their name was listed on the call sheet with the actors. There was no volunteer or intern next to their name, and they had no idea. And of the entire cast, they needed the money the most. And so I reached out to them and I tried to get them to contact the Actors Fund. I said, there must be something that we can do. And both of them were like, we just want to move on from this experience. We don't want to say anything. We don't want to cause any trouble. And that speaks again to that power.
As Black people, we always do that.
Yes, exactly. And then, so one of the instances I could have filed a charge against the woman. And then I realized the union told me, if we file a charge, she's going to be the one to investigate it, because she's also the owner of the company. And when I say I understood why this woman so blatantly abused her power, especially with this all Black cast, that it changed me. And I said, never again will I stay in a production where my mental health is put at risk, where I have to fight this hard for my humanity. I will never again put myself in that position. And so I think between that time and now, I've definitely started to advocate for myself in a more effective way, writing letters, getting the word out, you know, speaking to people who can counsel me and show me exactly how to make the change that I want to see in this industry. And I think for me, what I really got from that experience is that if you know, if I have to choose between, I hate to use this word, but career suicide and soul suicide, my soul won't be happy in any career if I'm selling myself short, or if I'm allowing anyone else to be treated the way that woman treated that cat. So that's what I got from that experience.
Mm-hmm. Oh, child, yes. Come on, Santoya. So I want to add to this. I go back to this company. I was in a core company, ACT's core company. And I remember I was asked to do a reading. The director who was going to be directing the show was there, and we were a military couple. And my parents in the show lived in a trailer park. And after the end of the reading, I heard the director say, she leaned back, she was like, well, nobody's gonna believe Black people live in trailer parks. And I was like, say what? And so I was like, okay. You know, she has an idea of where Black people, you know, live and how we are. I guess she knows all of us. So I had to go to the artistic director, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do a little research, and I'm going to show you that is not true. And she was like, okay, cool. So we set up a meeting. I bring her all this information about a group that's been, at that time, they had been a group for almost 2 decades. They have trailer parks, they travel all over the country, And then there was also this NFL player who grew up in a trailer park, and it really inspired his whole path to the NFL. And it's funny, it was a picture of him, he had locks, and he's staring at his trailer park where he grew up. Like he's just looking at it, and you just see the back of his head. And so I let her know this, and she was like, well, you know, this person, she has an idea of how she wants things. She's very stubborn, you know, she knows people, she knows things, like she, you know, she's about her judgment. And I was like, okay, cool. Let me at least audition. Let me prepare for this as a core company member, because I was fully aware that there were people in the core company who were not going to be auditioning. So I was like, you know what, I'll audition. And so she's like, okay, I'll tell you about the audition when it begins. I'll call you, I'll email you, da-da-da-da. So months go by, and I get a phone call saying that I am going to do the understudy part for this part that I had asked to audition for. It was just in the contract, you will be the understudy. And I was like, wait a minute, I didn't audition. I thought you were gonna tell me, I thought I was gonna audition. At least let me audition. Nothing, just understudy. And so when I went to this artistic director about it, she turned and she said, you should be grateful to be an understudy. And she had brought up my cohort in grad school. She was like, well, she's understudying in Broadway. You should be grateful you're getting to understudy. And it was like, what? and she had a defense for everything. And it really shaped my idea of, and I know the word paternalism came up, but I also became very aware that there are a lot of women in leadership who take on the oppression of, or the power of the oppressor, like, and then they turn it on everybody else in order to lift themselves. That I became extremely aware of at that moment. So yeah.
I don't have any personal stories, but I will say that a through line of this is like the lack of Black leadership. I think, you know, if we had more diverse BIPOC Black leadership in this field, you know, we wouldn't have the missed intentions from a white woman artistic director from her impact. You know, her intentions weren't probably to be racist towards you, but the impact she has, it's like, come on. But with Black producers and like more people who are like us, and then there'll be competition, because then, you know, you can't get away with just putting you in an understudy if you're gonna be the lead in this play. And then come on, because now you have something to work for, work with, work to. You know, they're like in competition with themselves, and we're fighting to like go be a part of their things. You know, it's that whole like with Hillary trying to break the glass ceiling. It's like constantly, and we have to set. I want us to set this bar. I think we have the capabilities and the talent. Shit. I feel like often than not, they want to use us, and you know, we want to. How do we use ourselves? I feel like that there's something in that as well. Yeah.
I was going to speak on the same thing when you were talking about having Black leadership in organizations. It seems like often what happens is that when you do your Black play, that's when you hire your Black designer and your Black costumer and your Black this person, and then you've covered all the bases, but somehow magically that Black person isn't good enough to do lighting for Long Day's Journey into Night, or you know what I mean? And so I feel like that we in some ways get ghettoized. It's like we could put in our own, with your own people, and you do your own shows and you want to do that, and we let you do that. And but then still the whole broad spectrum of the theater is not open. It's like if a white person wants to direct a show with Black people in it, then they're going to have somebody that's maybe an assistant director, which can have varying levels of power from a little bit to none, instead of a co-director who you want standing next to you in this experience. And so I feel like that there are token efforts to put us in places, but we're still impotent in those places because they don't really have any real power, while it is still looking like from the exterior point of view that the theater is committed to having Black people involved in positions of power.
Yeah, and yes, I want to add to that too. It's like, before I named about Attain, how many people on this call knew about that those theater companies with Black leadership or a cohort? Probably a low percentage of us on this call. And we could be putting our money, our effort, our energy, our love into those companies. Santoya, I saw you in Cabinet Hot 10 Review, kid that shit. You know, but it's like, how often can we miss the institutions that are already there, that are not getting the grants, that are not getting the corporate funding, that don't have a big sponsor, producing our big winter musical. We don't have that option. We don't have the opportunity to be like, oh, we'll do the Christmas show you want to do. How much you going to pay for? Okay, great. We're good. That's not what we have. We don't have those big. Maybe we need to find those big Black philanthropic people, maybe. But until then, we can go and just support those Black institutions that already exist and put our time, energy, effort, and love into those, and money into those. I'm speaking some real shit, y'all. They already exist. It's like we don't have to recreate this wheel. Like African American Shakespeare Company's been on for 30 years. Lorraine Hansberry is one of the oldest companies in this city. Cultural Odyssey with the Medea Project with Rodessa Jones created the Arts Commission Cultural Equity Initiative grant, making sure that non-white theater companies can have funding that put them on an equal playing field. And it's like, but we don't always know about this. We only see the ones who have enough money for the advertising, who have enough money for the resources to give out, while we're just trying to get on an equal playing field, basically, all right, we're putting our play up, we here, whoa, we made it. And that's sometimes seen as success for us, but really it's like, that's like the base for these other companies who are all doing all these other things, but they have the money, the support, the love of the community, I don't know what that is or why. Maybe we all need to do some inner thinking on why that is. I have no idea, but I think, go ahead.
May I ask you?
Please.
So we know that we have a lot of grad students coming out of all kinds of institutions.
Mm-hmm.
Not being told this, not being aware, if we have BIPOC, particularly Black actors coming out of these predominantly white institutions, getting hired by these what do you do there? How do you ameliorate this?
Yeah, I guess I can only, go ahead, sorry.
That's my question. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a really good one. We can be more productive. We can build a bridge. Our company personally, because we're like the younger of the cohorts of our folk, and I have a lot of friends who graduated from ACT over the past couple of years. My girl Jerry Johnson, we used her play last year.
Oh yeah.
One woman show called The Cricket Room. It was. And nobody came to it. It was at the African American Art and Culture Complex in collaboration with the Queer Cultural Center. It was with Backhoe being the main producers. And it was literally the lens of a Black queer woman, a one-woman show talking about her experience. And maybe our marketing wasn't very good. Maybe it was because it was during the Pride in June that people didn't notice it. Who knows? But we have been trying to make an effort, and it's not enough for us to just do the effort.
Right, the grad schools got to help too. They gotta, yeah.
Because we just trying to build our shit, trying to just we trying to just stay above water, trying to stay our air, because that's where we are after slavery. I'm gonna be real. That's where we are. We're like, oh, we can breathe. And these other, it's just like, oh, you're breathing, cool, good for you, but that's real. That is so real. Oh, how can I help? Should I pull you? Want me to pull you up? Oh, thank you. Thank you for acknowledging our existence and trying to bridge and build, because the potential of what we can create together, you already know that you need and want us. I'm gonna say need. You need us. I said it, I meant it. You do need us. So let's go and do it the right way. Build with a Black institution, with a BIPOC institution together. There's so much growth and strength and potential, so much opportunity, y'all. But we have to be willing to go and like make that extra effort and not just think about, oh, my company, my company, my company, my company, my company, my company, my company. What I saw what was so beautiful was with Lorraine Hansberry and Playground and all those other companies came together to do that. And I was on the reading, so I'm not gloating about it, but we did that awesome reading of, oh God, I forget the brother's name.
Polar bears, black boys, and prairie orchids.
Yes, Fringe Orchids. What was his name? I want to honor the playwright. Oh my God. If he's on here, someone write it in the chat, please. Lord have mercy. But what we created was something so awesome. We weren't thinking about our companies. We were like, this project, this story. And what, over like 900 to 1,000 people showed up at one time. We had collective free marketing, collective free word of mouth, collective free, you need to go and see this thing. And oh yes, Vincent Terrell Durham. Yes, yes. Thank you, y'all, for supporting me. I need help and support too. We are in this together, but that's what it's about. How do we create this collective together so there's not this company, that company, this company, and then oh, we need something from over there. Let's go get one and bring it back. No, let's build it together.
Once again, I need a little sip of water over here because it's a lot happening. But all very beautiful. I want to say thank you to we're not done yet, but I just want to say thank you to our panelists who've been very brave to come onto this call. Because I think that what we're seeing and what we've been talking about throughout this entire discussion is the importance of Black voices and also the danger of Black people voicing anything. So I really want to say thank you for giving a lot of dimension onto that. But we have about 10 more minutes for this panel or this section, but I wanted to get into some of the questions that has come up throughout the entire chat. I don't know if y'all been looking, but the chat has been popping off. I'm like, thank you.
It's been on fire. The chat has been on fire.
Oh my gosh. God. And before we move on, we will be posting at the end of this, we will be posting the Venmos, PayPals, Cash Apps of all of our panelists so that you can do what we need, which is to put your money into the pockets of Black artists. Surprise! But I do want to go into these questions, into some of these questions, and some of these expand upon what we were talking about a little bit before, and some of them are a little bit new. And the first one is that, once again, we talked a lot about self-advocacy, advocating for other people, especially when you're in that moment. But I think that there's also a question for non-Black folks and non-Black BIPOC folks. Like, how do these people, or thoughts, once again, it's not necessarily our place as Black people to inform everyone, but what can non-Black folks do to ensure that artists like never have to make these lists of demands in the first place? And how can they kind of step into that allyship, that accomplice role, and how can they be an advocate if similarly they're the only ones speaking out or potentially speaking out?
I feel like I should start with it. I went to school with somebody who was he was amazing. He was amazing. He would ask the questions. And I'm going to start off with the story, and then I'm going to go to the broader thing with what can be done. So we're all sitting in class, and the teacher, who was a dramaturg, he said, our town is the greatest American play ever. And some of us, we were just sitting there like, I'm like, yeah, what up? And then he stopped. He was like, hold on. And he was like, who decided this? Because he knew we were being taught to center whiteness. He knew it dropped. It dropped in. As soon as he asked the question, I turned and I was like, yeah, who came up with that idea? Who created this? Who said this is this white playwright and in this predominantly white play is it? And he completely started to knock, just that question began to, in school, in an educational institution, began to knock the walls down that had been built up. Like we grow up learning whiteness is center. Whiteness is, like, I teach Chinese kids online, and that's what I see every day. It has been deeply embedded. And so after graduation, seeing how anytime we would speak up, we would mess up a white person in leadership, their equilibrium, their false sense of equilibrium. Like they have taught us, like, this is the equilibrium. We are supposed to be the head. We're supposed to know where your money goes, where the paperwork goes, da 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 da. And anytime we would question it, there was resistance and a fight to keep that false sense of, almost like a dissonant equilibrium, maintain it. And I say that, all that to say, how do I say this? If you have BIPOC, and I'll speak to Black women in your spaces, and you devalue us, you disrespect us, that you need to admit, you have got to admit you are not qualified to do your job alone or at all. And you need to move out of the way. First, you need to admit you are not qualified, and the default is white. We are made to believe that all white people in leadership are qualified, and that is false. I'll say it right now, and I'll even go further. I do not believe white people are smarter, better, nicer, whatever. I cut it out. At this point, I'm just gonna say it. And we are going into these spaces, and there are people controlling our money and don't know how to pay us well, don't know how to give us our just due, taking our work and doing whatever, deciding what to do with our livelihood. It's not right. You're not qualified, you need to step down. You need to admit you're not qualified and move out of the way. That's all I got to say.
That's all you got to say. I mean,
Thank you. And I think, I just want to say, agreed. They've had more opportunities to fail. They've had more opportunities. I get one chance to fail, and then, oh, she didn't do well. Oh no, she can't do that. They have tons of opportunity to get it right. And, the fact that the moment that we mess up, it's so hurtful. It's so hurtful. It's like you're not even, and we turn in on each other for the same thing. They got us acting like them. Like, what? Are you doing that to me too? You can't just tell me that what I love, what's in my soul, is not good enough and dismiss me.
thank you so much, Cheri.
I am hugging you from a virtual distance, Cheri. I got my arms around you, sis. I do. Got my arms around you. Because I feel you. I feel you. Yeah.
I just need a moment. And that's okay.
Thank you all so much for being open and vulnerable with us. This is not easy, and it's a whole bunch of strangers in the room, like a whole bunch that you're putting your whole life in front of. And I just want to say thank you so much for doing that, and doing that in public, like here amongst us, because especially since so many of you are performers, like I know that you get asked to do this every day without a single thank you. You get asked to be put in this place and in this mindset and in this emotion, and then get all this stuff slapped up all around you. So like, thank you for opening yourself yet again. And I also want to say, since I know motherfuckers can hear me, please pay attention to what you are seeing right now. These are not, this is not a show. This is people's real lives. This is the real Black experience. People are in tears, and this is not the first time they're in tears over this. So I highly suggest that y'all really take a moment to look at the faces on your screen, to hear the trembling in their voices, to understand that their blood is rushing through their system right now, trying to hold this conversation so that you can be better. Like, so that you can get your life together. They are doing this for that purpose. So I highly suggest you take that in also. Like, do not pity pat these people. First of all, pay them. Second of all, understand that this is their real life. Do not take this moment for granted with this panel.
Santoya, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to touch on something that I don't think we said. So, I mean, well, I don't think was said yet, but I've said this before in the past, and it's that Black people are asked to perform their trauma more than any other demographic in this country. There's no other demographic that's asked to perform their trauma like Black people. So there seems to be something profitable in there for theaters, right? And I think that a part of what makes this difficult to experience anti-Blackness in our industry, while theater companies are profiting from our trauma, is this idea that you know, these are people who perpetuate anti-Blackness, and they're not profiting the Black communities that they're profiting from. But then also, as an actor, when you're asked to perform your trauma and then you go into the real world and you face that very real trauma, it does something to your spirit. Like, it truly does something to your spirit, to the point where when you experience these injustices, I would just speak for myself. I mean, I definitely started going from 0 to a 10 real quick. It became, you know, just so embedded in me to just like be quick to anger, because you're already surrounded by those circumstances as an actor in the play that you're exploring. And then you walk out into, you know, it's supposed to be a safe space, which is, you know, your dressing room or, you know, your rehearsal space, and you experience these things again. I just really want people to sit with that, with what Black actors experience on a regular basis, because a lot of times when we are talking about these all Black shows, we're not talking about a Black version of Oklahoma. Like, we're talking about Fairview, and you know, like what Rodney described in Tony Stone. Like, we're talking about these very heavy plays that we're glad to jump into. But if we're performing in this way and we're not seeing any change off stage, there's going to be a point where we break. And I think that's what we're seeing now as the industry, is that we are truly broken. And I'm glad that it's happened during the shutdown, because I don't think that anyone should profit from any more Black trauma until they understand Black trauma, and until they understand the ways that they perpetuate anti-Blackness, and until they make amends with the communities and the individuals that they have harmed.
Go ahead, Kathleen, please.
Thank you, Santoya. I just want to say thank you. And I want to say something about that. One of the things that was brought up is one of the potential questions we were going to ask about is if there was one incident that we experienced of anti-Blackness that sticks with you. And I sat down and I was like, oh, should I tell that story? Or this one? Or that one that I'd almost forgotten about. I got that close to forgetting about. Or that one where I had to suck it up because I knew that I'd be working with this person later on in the season. So if I didn't let it go, I'd have to let the job go, which means I'd have to let the paycheck go, which means I might not be able to feed my family. And okay. And so it's just like the world that we're living in, you know, somebody's knees on our neck, on George Floyd's neck, and that real. And then we come to the theater and then we play out a play where, like Kill Move Paradise, where there are 4 black men who are playing out their death and the list of all of the young black men the young black people who have died. And us living that trauma and living that experience for white people to go, oh, wow, I get it. And the many times that I've seen, like as soon as George Floyd happened and people were like, ooh, this is a mess. And every single time I got an email that said, we are standing in solidarity. I'm like, yeah, that's all you're doing. You're standing. You're not moving in solidarity. And what would happen is I'd read down the email, we're standing in solidarity, and we know how wrong it is and how society's so bad. Here's what you can do. Join the NAACP or do this. I was like, what? I'm a black woman reading your website. B, what I can do. What are you going to do to make the change rather than sending out a little letter that says we stand in solidarity? Because that didn't do me no kind of good. And so it's about being real, and it's about walking the walk that you say. And if walking the walk means paying black artists, working with more black artists, it also might mean take a little chunk of your profits and support a black theater company. You, rich theater company says, I'm gonna give this much of our proceeds to Lorraine Hansberry for them to produce another play. I'm gonna donate this hunk of money to Margot Hall put something on there that's fund black theater in the US, GoFundMe. Fucking get out there and go fund it. So if your money's where your mouth is, then put your money where that is. And don't make me have to retell and relive this trauma over and over and over without you actively doing something with the money that you have.
Sorry, I need to snap off mute, honestly.
I want to add one more thing. I know it's a little off, and I don't want to take away from Kathleen and Cheri's just,
There ain't no off. Sister, speak. Yes.
I gotta say this. All right. I lived in LA, and every single year it has been a problem in which I have to fight my representatives every February because I have been asked to come do a show because it's Black History Month, or I gotta stay for pilot season. It is always every single year, this constant battle, and it has gotten so exhausting. And my concern has been, you know, Black people, we could do theater every day of the year. Like, why you always calling me on February? I know we have to do like that. I'm not saying don't do theater then. It concerns me that as a Black person having to deal with being marginalized in LA and here in the Bay Area or all over the country, I have to pick and choose constantly like this. It's almost like a bad holiday, you know. And it is exhausting having to fight with representatives on this month because you're like, well, do I show up for my people in this way, or do I stay in LA and fight the good fight and see what happens, because the work here is even more lucrative and there's a possibility to represent us in a bigger platform. It is frustrating, and I just want theaters to take that into consideration much more often. Because I know I'm not the only one having this problem. I've talked to other actors. Yeah, this is a fight every single year. So yeah, that's all I have to say about it.
Go ahead, Rodney.
Oh, I told myself I wasn't gonna bring this up. Ooh. I know. Oh, let's go. You know, sometimes you get into a play, you're like, all right, I'm ready to do that number. I feel like we've warmed up. Our trauma is not anti-you. All right, this ain't the oppression fucking Olympics. We're not out here trying to be, oh, I've dealt with this more, I've dealt with this more. You know, like every time I leave my house, I am black and I am a man. And also I am gay, you know? But I get so often in our community in San Francisco, and I love my gay brothers and sisters and people of the LGBTQ plus community. But silencing black trauma for for your benefit is anti us. And that's all I'm gonna say, because I've seen examples of it happen with my own theater company where we were silenced of expressing black trauma because it offended someone else from the LGBTQ community. And they couldn't see that what we were talking about was a black man being shot. That's what happened in the play that we did called Salt, Pepper, Ketchup, written by Josh Wilder. Black man is shot. And we were told to silence, to stop our video because of the trauma that it was causing someone else. And I don't want to go into too many details because I'm not causing harm. I don't want to cause harm to someone else. And I know that people of the LGBTQ community are the ones at most risk of hurting themselves and harming themselves. And that is not what I want to do. I am a part of that community. But the black experience should never be taken away from you. And you cannot negate it. You know, that's as much as I want to go into detail about that, but that's just been on my heart and on my chest of being silenced by people who I consider friends and brothers and sisters in the LGBTQ community, silencing black trauma. It's disgusting.
Thank you. Cheri?
Julius, I would love to speak to my work as a house manager and the work that needs to be done for audience development too. I have had my pre-show speech interrupted so that a white man stood up and corrected me. And when I said, excuse me, he repeated himself again very loudly to correct me. And I've had white people not even assume that I worked at the theater. Maybe I was just volunteering because I'm waiting outside and greeting people. And then, you know, when they do find out that I am the house manager, they want to tell me that the way this, you know, this is set up is wrong. It would work better. You know, theater companies really need to make sure that we're doing the work to educate our audiences, that we're developing audiences, and that we're not just letting your subscribers come in and wreak havoc over the space as if they own it. It's it's hurtful. It's almost stopped me from doing my job many times. Like this, what? Why do I have to be the one to educate them? That yes, we can work all over the theater. We can work on the stage, we can work back there, we can work up here, I can work in the front of the house. The educating our audiences is really, really necessary, y'all. Really, really necessary. And really giving them some guidelines of how to interact with people of color in that space is necessary.
Thank you, Cheri.
Yes, Cheri, I dig that because assuming is not the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming that they just go no is just like the biggest falsehood ever. I so agree, 1,000%.
As a theater maker, myself, as a journalist, as a writer, as a playwright, words are so meaningless. Because what I'm interested in now, moving forward, is not words anymore. I'm interested in action. It feels like a broken record because we've been saying it over and over and over again. And we're tired of saying it. And our friends are tired of saying it, our parents are tired of saying it, our ancestors are tired of saying it, reverberating through us. But I think that it's important to realize, especially for everyone listening, is that any question that you would have had about what do I do for the future has been answered so eloquently and so beautifully and so emotionally truthful. And yes, and that's all. Because it is painful to know the fact of anti-Blackness, the fact of it. The sky is blue, water is wet, and anti-Blackness reverberates in every aspect of our art form because it reverberates through every aspect of our society. And it gets repeated over and over again, and it gets taught, and then it gets mirrored, and then it gets mirrored back to us. So once again, I want to say thank you. It was a privilege to sit here virtually and share space with you all. And yes. And with that, I will hand it back to Nicky Martinez, who will be closing us off, who we will also be, I will be communicating with the rest of the panelists post this discussion to see if anyone has space to answer some of the questions that we didn't get around to. We have all of those digitally archived. If you look on our chats, you'll be getting some information soon about how to donate to these artists. And Nikki will also be discussing what will be happening in the future, along with our other moderators, SK, Smiley, and also Eli. So I want to say thank you so much. Thank you. Please.
Thank you. Thank you all, honestly. This was so powerful. That was so amazing. I am so humbled that you guys had the bravery of coming out to be so honest and so transparent. That is something that I always look for in panels like these, and it never gets that way because of this fear of being in a room full of white artistic directors and people who have control over your careers. And we need to remind those who are on this call that we understand that there is a list that goes off to block people from coming on, or to understand that these people are difficult because they talk on panels like these. And we need to end that culture, because that is being complicit in your anti-Blackness, that is also being complicit in your racism, that is re-traumatizing these people and also financially damaging them. So we need to stop that. That is one actionable change that you all can do right now, to understand that these are people giving their emotional and physical labor. We are re-traumatizing ourselves every time we go on panels like these, exposing our truths. So I want to remind you all. So thank you again, panelists, for being here and being completely honest. It really humbles me, and it made me cry a few times, and it was very lovely. So thank you. Right now, before I do a closing, I do want to give it off to Eli to talk briefly about the continuation of the living document and where it's going and how it's doing. So Eli, you could take the floor now when you're ready.
Thanks, Nikki. That was such a powerful dialogue, everyone. Thank you, and extending my gratitude and solidarity to the panelists for speaking their truth and their vulnerability, for sharing wisdom and power and knowledge, and sharing your experiences with us. Cheri, Cathleen, Omoze, Santoya, and Rodney, and Julius for moderating the discussion this evening, and extending also my gratitude to the folks in the Zoom who stayed till the very end and for paying attention and intentionally listening and being part of this very necessary conversation for our theater community in the Bay Area. I'm really grateful for the collective energy in this space, on the chat, and the potential energy for all of us to implement change and invest in care, love, money, action, and introducing new policies to rebuild and equitable structures in our industry. With that said, I want to give you all an update where the living document is right now and where it will be going. The newest version of the living document has been published on July 9th, the very first month mark since the living document was made public. It is now accessible and even more extensive than before. The website is also available with themes and takeaways and impacts that compromise the comments and behaviors, emotional, psychological, economic, and financial, as well as professional impacts. All of the conversation that happened today and that BIPOC individuals deal with on the daily basis whenever they are in a predominantly white institution or organizational space. And the living document also has now a brief guide on how to engage with it. And we are continuing to synthesize the living documents to translate our BIPOC community's testimonies into strategies of actions and equitable demands towards realizing true equity. And we're continuing to develop the action plan, which we hope to release sometime this week. This action plan is going to be a litmus test for everyone, and your actions will speak louder than more than ever before. I also wanted to use this moment to share on the wild and horrific side of things happening to me personally. I want to acknowledge and be transparent that I still continue to receive malicious emails, both from made up Gmails and brave white people using their real emails to send me messages with the intent to hurt and alienate me for merely creating the space for BIPOC to speak their truth. I also want to acknowledge that while flipping through the gallery view earlier today, that I've witnessed at least 2 white people who have consistently messaged me on Facebook, who have consistently sent me emails and texts and voicemails demanding me of my time, feeling entitled of my time and my response and my energy around the living document with a very hostile tone. I have at this very moment the power to name them right now, and I'm choosing not to. And I want to amplify what has already been said on the chat during the panel dialogue, that just because you are on the Zoom attending this anti-Blackness discussion right now, that it does not absolve you of your prejudice, your racism, and your biases. This has been such a powerful discussion, everyone. So thank you again for the panelists, for your emotional, intellectual, and physical labor, educating us all. And I'm deeply grateful.
Thank you so much, Ely, for giving that to us. Also know that there is a GoFundMe that is happening to support these artists that are doing completely unpaid labor to continue the living document and also Ely's work. So please, please, please donate to fund these artists. Again, if you want to fund the panelists today, please Venmo at SK. And also, if you would like to donate more to the moderators of this time, please email me and I could talk to you of how to do that. And just to wrap up, I want to continue to let you know that this was a long 3 hours, and I want to recognize that this was a lot of education. This was a lot of emotional and physical labor to sit here and listen and be present and learn. I want to also lift up these voices and thank them so much for their work, because without all of you, this wouldn't have happened. And thank you all for joining. We want you to leave here knowing that we are expecting actionable change, whether that is being accountable internally, externally, through your organizations, through companies, through your community. We need something to happen because we cannot continue to have these conversations and nothing happening. We can't just let it fall through the cracks. And like the panelists said, we are in a great position right now during COVID, being in lockdown, where we are able to sit and reflect on these issues that we've sort of passed by. In theater, we usually look towards the next gig or the next show or the next this or the next that. And as companies and leaders and just artists in general, we have to take time to pause and really think about these issues that we've just been sweeping under the rug or being complicit in. Understand that this is not the end. These are the last 2 sessions that we have here at Theater Bay Area hosting Ely, but we encourage other organizations to continue this talk, to continue their education. Just so you know, there's a BIPOC administrators and white-led organizations webinar done by Art Equity right now, going on every Friday and Sunday. I highly recommend those who want to continue learning about that to check that out. Also talk to Eric Ting and Mina Marita, who have an artistic leadership work group talking about working towards equity. And then SK, I know you put down a link that Cal Shinks is doing for accountability workshop. So again, look that up. Again, I will be sending all of this information in an email so you don't have to worry. Also information of how to continue to fund these panelists, how to continue to fund these moderators and the living document work. And now I just want to end everybody with a closing breath. So wherever you are, again, calm yourself, center yourself, feel the ground beneath your feet, feel your butt on your seat or anything like that. And I want everybody to take a deep breath in now. Hold it and let it out. This is a reminder that breath connects us even when we are not in the room together. Everyone breathes, everyone is a human in this point, but we need to acknowledge the traumas and end the cycle of trauma and pain. Again, breathe in, hold, let it out. Thank you all for joining us, and we really hope that you take this with you and work on it. Goodbye, everyone.